Chicago. Can you see her?
Now there was an intro for you.
Me?
Chicago.
Did you know it's like a call.
I was like, he's just gonna have me doing that as the intro now.
And welcome back to the NYC Godcast. This month we're talking about the premise of Jesus trading spaces with us. He had the most amazing situation. He was in heaven, sitting right next to God, living in this perfect paradise. And one day God came to him and basically told him that he would have to leave everything that he has, come down, and not only be born in a nasty, dirty stable, he would then have to live a difficult life. So I think that's like, we talked about him coming down and trading spaces just simply as a baby, being brought down. But like, he had a whole life that he had to live that he wouldn't have had in heaven. You know what I mean? So just because he was the Son of God does not mean that the things he went through were easy. It wasn't just like, this is what I have to do because this is what I have to do. He actually felt those things. It wasn't like the things that people said, the things people did to him, and the things that he had to endure were just a walk in the park and didn't affect his flesh. These things hurt him just as much as it would hurt us. So not only did he have to choose to leave heaven to come down, be born in the barn, he also had to leave the life that he had.
I think that often when we read the Bible, I've said this to several people, is that you're reading the Bible, and even when Jesus is talking to the Pharisees, it's like, Jesus, we don't believe you, but you must believe me. But we don't. Please. Come. Those were heated arguments. You know what I mean? Like, they were accusing him. But yet when we read the Bible in our minds, it's always such
Those usually ended with stones in hand. Like they were assault rifle rocks, picked up, ready to kill the guy. They did not go well.
Yeah, it wasn't just like a simple, little discussion that you would have with amongst friends.
Exactly.
I like how you put that God came, obviously we know Jesus, the Bible tells us that Jesus was sovereign in all things. He was before the beginning of the world. So he always knew this.
Yes.
But what I love is that you said that, God comes to him and says, now is your time to go. So it's almost like God's ambitions for his only son is, grow up to live a very difficult life that's impossible and be tortured and ultimately killed and unappreciated. That's my ambitions for you. That's what I like. And as parents, you don't
want that.
We all have ambitions for our kids. Yeah. It's not that.
Yeah, we try really hard to do the opposite of that. For our kids.
Well, and how we basically do all we can to enable our kids with those ambitions and dreams. And here's God, and he's like, we're going to strip all those away. So basically we could say, even in that, he traded spaces, right? He traded success for pain on our behalf. Yeah. And how many of us would be willing, most of us, we go through a hangnail and we're like, come home.
Yeah.
And then,
that's the intro.
I feel like we're giving him too much content this week. I'm done. You made fun of me.
Okay.
It's that easy.
I didn't know that's what the trick was. I'm not 100% sure what his everyday life would have looked like in heaven. We won't know until we get there. But think about living in this perfect place. This place that's never too hot. It's never too cold. You've never felt pain, never felt hunger, and everyone got along. Wow. I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched for me. To go from that place to where you're getting overheated all the time, being cold is normal. You suddenly have to endure pain, and you now have to eat to survive.
Not for pleasure.
Yeah, you actually have to eat or else you'll die.
That's rather pesky.
And now it's a lot more common for people to hate each other than it is for them to love each other. If any of us would have been told that we would have to leave heaven to come down to be born in this sinful, wretched, evil place, we would have refused. We would have been like, absolutely not. That's I am worth more than that. Right. If we were in his spot.
Well, especially knowing the end result.
Yeah.
Because the end result, one thing we're selfish enough, no, I don't want to go down there. But also it's going to get worse than that. And then you're going to die.
Not only
for someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just the ultimate sacrifice.
And we would have fought tooth and nail to not leave. We would have tried to say that someone else can do it. I mean, couldn't one of the angels just do it? Anybody else but me? But Jesus didn't. He took the task because he wasn't concerned about himself, what he wanted, or what was comfortable for him. His only concern was that he was following God's will. He's seen that God loved us so much, and Jesus knew that this was the only way for us to have a relationship with God again. He chose to restore something that we ruined back in the Garden of Eden.
I think it's worth mentioning that Jesus did what needed done,
Yeah.
not what he necessarily wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like, I say that with quotations, I guess, because he was born to die. Like he
Yes.
did want to do this ultimately, but it was the Father's will. But spiritually, he was willing to do what needed to be done,
Yes.
not what was pleasurable.
Yeah.
But like we look around and like, we talked about this in Sunday school this morning, whose life are we living? The Bible says to live is Christ.
Yeah.
We are crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ in me. He's the one doing the living.
Yes.
And so if he was willing to do what needed done then, not what he wanted to do, shouldn't we be willing to do the same? Shouldn't we be willing to do what needs to be done, not necessarily what we want to do?
Yeah.
And yet we look around at the church today and that's the opposite.
Yeah.
Like everyone's doing what they want to do and forget what needs to be done. One of my favorite Eric Ludy sayings is, if there's a dish in the sink, wash it. And like, he's not meaning actual dishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I live by that. Like, so whether it's spiritually, someone needs to go pray with them, do it. Someone needs to sit with them, go sit with them. Someone needs to call or text them, you be the one to do it. Someone
And
needs
don't
to
do it
read
begrudgingly.
Yeah, like something needs to be done, do it.
Yeah.
Do we get that Jesus wasn't afraid to do the difficult things? And yet we really are.
Like he had to live the most difficult.
yeah.
Like the most difficult. And
epitome
we're like,
of difficult.
we're like, I don't want to talk to somebody. That's like uncomfy. But he literally was nailed to a cross and died for us. But we're too afraid to go talk about him to somebody.
But that was his whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It wasn't like that was a one page on
Or that was like, on Sundays, I'll get uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no,
That's
like
a good
his
point.
whole life,
Yeah.
it was uncomfortable.
Man, can you imagine living a life with no comfort?
Yeah.
Zero.
That's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. That's uncomfortable.
thought is
But zero.
uncomfortable.
Like
Yeah.
literally zero. Like.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable. I silenced them.
It doesn't happen often.
That's a lot of work to make us do that. So last Sunday we were sitting in Sunday school, and I get a lot of my things from Sunday school because our kids are just
There's something.
they're something, but they're so far beyond.
You don't
what-
even have my kids.
My class is mine.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like they're so far beyond what we could even pretend to be, even at their young age.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there and we're talking about creation. We went back to Genesis 1:1, and then got to the part where Adam and Eve sinned and they were kicked out of Eden. We talked about how it wasn't just Adam and Eve and that any one of us would have chose to sin because that's just how our flesh works. And the reason that Jesus had to come and restore our relationship with God was because of that. All of the kids had plenty of questions, like, was this one animal around at this time? And like, just random questions. But one stuck out to me. My mom had just finished saying, that is why Jesus had to die for our sins. And Callan asked, what if he didn't?
That kid.
Yours would.
Yeah. And like, me and mom were both like, oh. But that's not part of the story.
Bessie.
We need Bessie to come talk to you.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about it before that Jesus had free will to choose to die for us because he was just as much man as he was God. But I think that because he did go to the cross and he did die for us, that we don't even think about what would have happened if he didn't trade spaces with us in that sense. I would say that even the best of Christians take this for granted.
For sure.
Jesus could have said, no, they're not worth it. They chose to disobey God, and now they have to pay the consequences. And to be honest, he would have been completely justified in that answer. We were unworthy of his blood.
I think Adam and Eve are the perfect example of like, you had one job.
Yeah.
One job.
Exactly.
But it goes back to the point of we don't do what needs to be done, what God tells us to do, what he says is best.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even that was like, this would be a good idea, or this is what I need from you. This is like, all of humanity rests on you listening to this one thing. It's what is best. And they couldn't even do that. They still went for what they wanted.
Yep.
And like what we don't get is all these thousands of years later, and we're still doing what we want, not what he says we need to do as is best. And that's a problem.
Yeah, it is.
And yet that's all the more reason, which is what you're saying, that all the more reason he needs to come is not only did they choose it then, but we're still choosing it now.
Like
we're still
actively.
choosing our will over God's will. And that's why we need Jesus.
Yeah. Without Jesus, we would be eternally lost. Life as we know it would have no purpose. God would have either forsaken us forever if Jesus never came, or he may have just destroyed us completely at that moment. You know what I mean? If we would have, if there was
Total annihilation.
Yeah, like just You know what I mean?
Snowboarding? Yeah, I was thinking like, boom.
Imagine.
You kind of make that kind of seem like it's not that bad.
God went down the ski slopes and it was fine.
But what I did tell you was the people that came down had fiery flames.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, I don't see the vision.
You didn't hear the crackles of the flames.
Okay. All right. And it was a pool of lava.
That they're snowboarding on.
Yeah, it's not burning on the pool of lava.
Okay. All right.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's good.
Jamie, I'm glad you're not God.
Me too. But if he did allow us to live, we would have been miserable, unfulfilled, and all alone in this world. Then we would have died and we would have went to hell and burned forever with no chance for relief.
But isn't that the life that non-believers, because like so many of them, they're just like, I'm just gonna like live my best life and die. You know what I mean? And then like that's it. So like where is your like motivation? Like what are you striving for? You know?
I think this is the irony of mankind. Sometimes the worst punishment God can give us is not trading. Like I don't want to say keeping us in the space we're in.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is kind of what Kevin's saying. So just like Adam and Eve, we pursued the fruit. We pursued what we wanted. Sometimes the worst punishment imaginable is a continuation of pursuit of what you think you want. Jenny works with someone we were talking about the other day, and this person is just they're bitter and they're miserable on so many levels. Their life is so awful, and the reason is nothing other than they're pursuing passionately with all they've got this thing and this thing and this thing, and there's no satisfaction there. There's no contentment, and Jesus is like, I'll trade you. I'll give you contentment. I'll give you satisfaction. I'll give you a well springing up from the inside out that just is totally overwhelming. All you have to do is give that up. And we're like, no, I'll keep my space. And so I guess that brings in a whole nother theological debate to the theories. Not quite. Maybe a swish.
When you're like,
God, onomatopoeias. I need a little ant.
He doesn't have one.
Taller ant. I was like, what? That isn't in the word. Anyways, I hope that makes the intro. They're like, he's totally lost his cuckoo.
He's lost his cuckoo. It's not even there.
I found it. Anyways, so Jesus is willing to trade us spaces. That is the gospel. He willingly traded spaces. The thing is, man has free will to reject his willingness to trade that space. And so just like Kevin said, the lost people, why are they miserable? Because though Jesus is willing to trade them space and give them the perfection of heaven, give them satisfaction, they're saying, no, I'm good where I'm at. I'll stay in my stable ways, my barn ways, my smelly believer ways, and I'll seek and pursue the things of this world and neglect heavenly pleasures. And so free will takes a role in this. I lost people for sure, you can see that, but I think on a level, all Christians do that. You know what I mean? We all have an area of our life where we're not willing to give that back to Jesus to trade with him.
Right. I think that I think I forgot what I was gonna say.
I'm sorry.
But no,
I'll bring it around.
You were gonna say swish.
No, I wasn't. Mine is a
I can't make that noise.
no.
No.
Try.
No.
I don't just say swish.
But I think what it is that, and I tend to like call this out more and more every time I see it, is that like it's not that non-believers are just sitting there saying like, no, God, I don't want what you have. I'm going to sit here and wallow in my own misery. That's not their mindset. Their mindset is, I can get myself out of this.
Right.
Like I don't need.
I have no need to trade space.
Yeah. Like why would I want to trade? I mean, yes, I'm drowning, but I
like water.
Breathing water is fun.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And as their situation gets worse and worse and worse, you know what I mean? The piranhas show up, the shark shows up, it starts raining, thunderstorm. Okay. Like they still have that mindset of like, but I can swim with an umbrella and I can fight the sharks off at the same time. I'm okay. You know what I mean? And Jesus is the ship right next to him, like, come aboard.
So
and I'm like, no.
So take that. So let's come back to the Christians then. So the scene with Peter in the boat. We've talked about over and over and over. I feel like it's one of our favorite scenes on this podcast.
Yeah, it's just you.
Yeah, I think I'm the one who's brought it up every time. So
can we have
whatever.
a compilation of every time he's brought it up?
Montage, go. But to that scene, so you have Jesus, right? And we're talking about trading spaces. So Jesus is perspective in life compared to our perspective in life, he's willing to trade us. So here's Peter afraid, and here's Jesus not afraid. Jesus has total peace. Jesus has total control over every bit of that storm. Peter has no control. He's afraid he can't swim. He can't walk on water. He's going to sink. He's going to drown. He's going to die.
Yeah.
Jesus says, trade me spaces. And so what Peter needed to do in that scenario, and he starts to, is see what Jesus sees. God is sovereign and control of all things. The wind and the waves obey him. Yeah. And so what I want to say to each of us is, he's saying the same thing to us. Trading spaces isn't just for salvation.
Yeah.
Right.
In all things, trade spaces with him. Have his perspective. Have a heavenly perspective. In the situation, in my finances right now, in my family right now, in my health right now, whatever it is that I'm facing, what is his perspective of this? Yep. Trade him spaces. Let him see it I'll let him allow you to see it from his vantage point, is what I'm going to try to say poorly.
Very good.
I'm done.
Okay. Jesus trading spaces with us was the only thing that could bring us back to God. And honestly, I know you're talking about lost people and different things. And I think it was Kent Hovind, said basically the whole thing of the reason why there's so much suicide, the reason why there's so much crazy bananas with like the genders and like everyone's trying to find them is because they don't have Jesus and they don't have they don't have purpose. If you were told from the day that you started school that you came from soup and you have no purpose, then what's the point?
Yep.
What is the point?
I hate soup.
Do you really?
I do.
You don't have to hate
what's
yourself.
the point?
You seem like a soup kind of
No, not at all.
What if it's in a bread bowl?
Oh, I'll eat it if it's in I'll eat my leather shoe if you put it in bread. I don't care.
Why?
Swoosh.
Leather.
I think just shoes in general would be funny.
Flip-flops.
That was the point. Thank you.
There you go.
That's what my shoes are made out of.
But truly and honestly, you can't have any purpose or even self-worth, like, because it's not what it's about, but like have any kind of purpose in your life without him. And so that's what everyone's chasing after. But that's what people don't understand is when you're getting rid of God, you get rid of that.
You eliminate your self-value because the whole God created us in his likeness and image, and that is what brings us value. Apart from the likeness and image of God, we are dust and dirt and worthless. Ash is actually what the word means there in Genesis and in Genesis 3. And what that word means is what is ash? It's the leftover stuff after you burn everything else away. Yeah. Everything of value is burned up, and what's left is ash. That's you, apart from God's image and likeness. And so that's why there is suicide in bananas, apparently, which is what you said.
Bananas.
Yeah, crazy bananas.
Crazy bananas.
But even with that, like, again, I agree with that. But a lot of the gender confusion and a lot of the, even Christians, like, why do we so look forward to vacations and things like that, well, or Facebook or whatever our getaway is? It's because we're looking for relief. And what Jesus is saying is, I'm your relief. Trade me perspectives in this. You know, come unto me and I'll give you rest. Not
Facebook does not give you rest.
No, it does not.
It does not give you rest. No. Not even a little bit. Is everybody good? Is everybody settled in their heart?
Let's hear your
explosion.
Yeah, let's hear your.
You gotta try it. Come on. No,
it's like capiche.
Capiche.
That's something in Italian.
It's an Italian blow.
Do you understand me? Capiche? Isn't that what capiche means?
Capiche means
understand me. Do you capiche? You understand
yes,
me?
or is
That's from Full House.
Okay, well that's where I learned Italian.
Is it Italian?
I thought it was Italian.
When
your fingers are this way, it has to be Italian.
Yeah, like
capiche? Right.
That's from Full House.
It could really mean something totally different, but we're just basing it on what the movie.
Uncle Jesse says it
in Full
to
House.
Stephanie all the time, or not Stephanie, Michelle.
Just in general, he says
Well,
it.
I learned I couldn't afford Rosetta Stone, so I learned Italian from Full House.
Where they don't speak any
White Americans in San Francisco. All these versions, you know.
Francis.
French all of a sudden. I don't speak that either.
Francisco.
Well, you know, when you know, you know.
When in Francisco, I guess.
Francisco.
Eat your shoes in a bread bowl. That's right.
Yeah, that's a good.
Jamie, quote somebody.
I don't know who it is. Anybody.
Well, she does. That's what she does every week. It's just anybody.
It's anybody. I don't know.
Nobody.
Huh? Uncle Jesse. Capiche.
Capiche. Uncle Jesse.
The considerable quote is, "We must remember that no matter what we do or how successful we are in life, without Jesus, we've totally lost everything."
That was a nice save.
Yeah, thank you.
From
that guy. Girl. I don't know who that is.
Them.
And then my featured content today is Patching It Up by the Rochesters. Is that how you say it? Rochesters.
Roaches.
Rochesters. I don't know.
Rochesters.
Yeah.
It's Rochesters.
Rochesters.
Yeah, Rochesters. All right.
Okay.
But yeah, that was that. Thank you.
Let's all do it together. That was actually kind of soothing.
Yeah, it was kind
I
of.
can't do the whoosh thing. Just doesn't sound. It
No.
sounds fun. and you guys weren't using it.
I have gone whoosh sometimes, and it's not fun.
But it's just the thing. It's like if you don't listen to guys, you're gonna go.
Rachel went whoosh downstairs
Like,
3 years ago.
Yes, it
It makes it sound like I might want to whoosh.
No whoosh. No whoosh bad.
You have to like.
When you go whoosh, you smack your head on the ice, don't you, CJ?
Ouch.
Anyways. Capiche?
Capiche? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining this hot mess, and join again if you want to, I guess, at your own will. Bye.
Well, we have no follow. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You're not. We need to work on that with you.
It's fine.
See you next time if you want to. Maybe.
You will be here.
The whoosh be on your
There's
soul.
our new commercial. We're going to promote that on Facebook.
Is that? We have commercials?
No. But we will now.